You're now tuned in to UA360 Radio, Urban Alchemy 360.com.
You are listening to Urban Alchemy 360 Radio.
We have another guest coming up, and this is going to be pretty interesting because it's going to go into a lot of deeper conversations and arguments in regards to personal rights, due process, equal protection under the law, and all of the arguments that happen. We have a brother by the name of Edward Forchion, also known as New Jersey WEEDMAN, who was recently sentenced to 9 months for marijuana possession in New Jersey. And the marijuana that he had was legally purchased in California, where he is a medical marijuana patient for treatment of his bone cancer. So even though marijuana is legal in New Jersey, the pot that he purchased legally in California is not considered legal in New Jersey. And ironically, the judge who sentenced Forchion to 9 months in prison actually allows him to leave the prison for 10 days every month out of his sentence so that he can go back to California to get his treatment, which includes marijuana.
You know, how about getting one nation, unified laws so we can understand what's going on? Now, we're joined on the line by another guest with the story that we were just introduced to. Please introduce yourself to the listening audience for us.
My name is Edward Forchion. I've been publicly calling myself the New Jersey WEEDMAN for at least the last 15 years or so, because I've been publicly advocating for the legalization of marijuana. And I've kind of got myself a little famous here, there, and the other. I fought a couple of pretty good court cases here and there. Last year, in 2002, I actually had 2012, I actually had a court case in New Jersey where I utilized a defense called jury nullification, and actually was acquitted in a pretty public trial. It's actually kind of made state officials kind of mad at me once again, but I've been kind of used to that anyway, just advocating the legalization of marijuana like I have been.
Now, was this the jury nullification? This was in California?
No, I actually I brought some medical marijuana to New Jersey. I was traveling back and forth from California to New Jersey. I was living in California, but I'm from New Jersey. So I was coming home on a visit, and I brought some of my medicine with me. Actually, by the way, I should have brought up the fact that I am a bone cancer patient. I've had bone cancer for the last 13 years. I've had a couple of tumors removed. I've had a few different procedures, but one of the things I did do is I became a legal medical marijuana patient in the state of California.
Good morning. This is Will Roberson. I want to ask, when you first got the bone cancer, were you incarcerated at the time, or was this something that you felt was coming on, or was this as a result of the first incarceration?
Well, during my first incarceration is when I discovered I had it. Okay. Prior to going in jail, that was in 2000, prior to going in prison on a marijuana charge, I had discomfort in my knee. I had assumed that it was a sports injury or something for a couple months, but after I got into the Riverfront State Prison, a lump developed on my knee, and I got it. It took me a little while, but I eventually got it X-rayed, and it was discovered that it was a tumor. So that first one in 2000, that's where I found out that I actually had bone cancer while I was in prison in 2000.
Okay.
Turn off your radio behind you if you can, if it's not too far away.
You're now tuned in to UA360 Radio, Urban Alchemy 360.com.
Okay, there we go.
We're still on.
Sorry about that. Yeah, there was a TV in the other room. I just closed the door.
So from what I understand now, the charge that's happening now, where does it stand right now? I understand you've been sentenced to 9 months in jail. However, you are apparently able to be released once a month for every 30 days, or I guess for 10 days.
10 days.
10 days, every 20 days, you get released for 10 days to go to California to get your medication, which is the reason why you're in trouble in the first place in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, I also get I'm involved in an experimental bone hardener drug experiment.
Well,
it's a drug that's already been being used for women with osteoporosis, as but they got a concentrated version that they're basically testing on humans. And I had tried over the last 13 years. I've had several different procedures here, there, and the other, and it came down to I actually didn't want another surgery, and this treatment was offered, and I looked at it as a godsend, and I've been in this program for the last couple of years. But what happened really was I came home on a visit in 2010, 3 months after New Jersey passed its own medical marijuana law, and I came home and I brought my medicine with me. I was a licensed user in California, and I brought it home to New Jersey during my visit, and I actually got the worst of luck. I pulled up at a light, and right next to me was a New Jersey state trooper who recognized me.
Well, and that therein lies that right there is a problem for many, for the arguments there. You weren't arrested because you were doing anything wrong. So he didn't catch you with a blunt in your mouth, a bowl in your hand, lighter in the bowl in each one, nothing like that. He looked at you. So this was the beginning of it. He looked at you and recognized you for basically being a thorn in someone's side.
Yep, I've been a very public advocate of legalization. I've been in and out of the press. My face has been in the news, and we were at a light side by side. I looked over at him. He looked at me. I knew I was getting pulled over as soon as we had eye contact.
Now, was this someone? Was this a law enforcement that you had run into before at all, or just,
no?
He just recognized you.
And after he pulled me over, I subpoenaed the camera. So after he pulled me over, you hear him asking. He asked, like, have I ever had action with you? And I was like, no. Like, he's trying to remember where he knew me from.
Right.
And I told him no. And then after a couple of seconds, he's like, wait a minute, you're the guy with the website, aren't you? And I was like, yes, because I have a website, NJ WEEDMAN.com. At one point a few years ago, as a way of protesting the law, I actually tried to change my name to NJWEEDMAN.com. And the press ran with it. It went in and out of the court for a couple years, and a lot of people still call me NJWEEDMAN.com because of that court case. And he was one of those ones that recognized me as that guy that fought that court case about the name change.
Well, there was one thing that you were known for as well. You kind of changed the game a little bit in regards to using jury nullification as a defense. Can you expand a little bit more of that for our listeners?
Okay, jury nullification is actually pretty simple and is very complicated all at the same time. Simply stated, a jury has a right to judge a law or to nullify a law, to render a verdict that's in keeping with their own conscience. And a jury cannot be punished for their verdict. So, in most states, especially the original 13 colonies, somewhere in their constitutions, it usually gives that right to a jury to also judge a law. So, for instance, in New Jersey, it's Article 1, Paragraph 6, and the last clause in Paragraph 6 says, and the jury has a right to judge a law as well as a fact. So I was presenting a case after I got caught with my marijuana that the law was wrong. New Jersey's law was not presenting any viable defenses for me other than to say, march your butt into jail. Take this plea bargain and march your butt in jail. But no, I knew that I could also argue to the jury that the law is wrong, not I. And I got a lot of resistance from the prosecutor. I got a lot of resistance from the judge in the case. I even got resistance from the public defender's office.
Wow.
But ultimately, I was allowed I was allowed to do a lot. The judge restricted me a lot, but in my opinion, that's basically all I presented to the jury. I told them, yes, I had this pound of marijuana. It is my medicine. I use marijuana every day. I explained why I use marijuana. And I several times, I read New Jersey Constitution, Article 1, Paragraph 6, where it says the jury can judge a law as well as a fact.
Can you tell us a little bit about your plea for clemency to Governor Christie, and how's that going?
Yeah, well, recently, I won that case first. I actually won that case. I got found not guilty by a jury of my peers, even though I was very, very guilty. But I did catch a minor marijuana possession charge, and the state has retaliated. For winning that case, they could have put me in prison. The whole publicity of it, and for this minor marijuana possession charge, I got sentenced to 9 months in jail. And the judge, I don't know if he's trying to present it as it was a compassion on his part, but even though he was sentencing me to jail, to also allow me 10 days out to go back to California to get my
does not seem as compassionate
treatment
as he would like to think.
And to me, it hurt me as much as it helped me. I mean, first of all, you put somebody in a cage for 20 days and then you let them out to go, go take care of something. Sometimes they don't want to come back. So
Exactly.
It's kind of stressful.
Well, I could imagine the stress that you must be going through, having to be, number one, treated not as a cancer patient, but as a prisoner, then to be sent to be let out to be treated as a patient, just to come back to be a prisoner again for the exact same charge. So they're going to heal you with the same thing that they're going to bury you with.
Now, one thing slipped past that I wanted to mention is that was probable cause for that stop. Was
probable cause?
No, but was that
to
ever
recognize a celebrity or recognize
was that
a
ever
recognizable face in any way?
challenged?
It's not a crime.
Was that ever?
He did I couldn't nail him on profiling, but I know what he did. It was nothing but a pretext stop. My front tires, when I stopped, my front tires were above the white line. Now, he gave me a ticket for, like I said, it was a pretext stop. It said that I disregarded a traffic signal. And I argued before, we had a whole probable cause hearing, and I argued before the judge. At some point, he lied and said I was all the way out in the middle of the intersection. But, at the same time, his testimony didn't even match up because he even agreed that we looked at each other, when we pulled up to the intersection. That was something that I lost on that whole probable cause argument. The judge rubber stamped it. Well, we all know that judges rubber stamp a lot of the prosecution's arguments and findings anyway. So I wasn't surprised about that. But again, I held my hopes on the whole jury nullification argument, which worked, which actually I was victorious in it. I slapped the court with a little knowledge.
Can I ask you? I want to ask you. Do you think it's presidential based on your history in terms of the first conviction that you had, though? This whole thing, where they're not just looking at you as a patient.
Yes, it's absolutely. I've been, like I said, I've been very public about the legalization of marijuana, and I admit I'm a legalizer. I believe it should be legal. I don't just advocate for the medical use, or I don't just advocate for recreational / social use, or even religious use. I feel that all three of those arguments are valid, legitimate reasons for legalization.
Especially when we're ultimately talking about a plant.
Prior to being a patient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could just happen to be grown in your backyard.
Exactly, which is what's so frustrating about it, because let's not lose sight of the fact that the truth of the matter is that it's just a plant, but yet somewhere along the line it was, jumbled into as a Schedule I drug.
But we can have a multi-million-dollar industry sell us alcoholic beverages.
You can drink yourself under the table, and that's okay.
Into sclerosis and other liver cancer and everything else.
Car accidents.
I think a lot of the things
violence
that you had been dealing with, I see, has also been because of your approach to your approach to the way you handle certain things. Whether mailing. I think you mailed a bottle of weed to the governor to the governor's office.
Oh yeah, I've always engaged in civil disobedience acts, and that was just one of them. For a little while, I would mail basically a joint every month or every couple of weeks to the governor.
So you put yourself on the map, let's say.
So let me ask you,
and you're serious about it.
There was a time when I had all the politicians in Camden and Burlington County terrified that I'd show up at their office and smoke a joint. I went on a campaign of just popping up at politicians' office and getting inside and smoking a joint in their office.
Let me ask you about the kind of support you've gotten from people in general.
Well, I walk around this part of New Jersey, say Camden County, Burlington County area, Mercer County, around Trenton. I'm a celebrity. I get recognized by people constantly.
What are they? Is there anybody? Is there a movement of people behind you that are trying to help? The legislation is ridiculous. You're using it for a medical purpose. And regardless, realistically, because in New York we have a situation with stop and frisk, where they're basically profiling African American and Latino youngsters and pulling stuff out of their pockets and then criminalizing them for the same thing that other kids are walking around every day with all over suburban USA.
Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely.
So are these people? Are these people supporting you in your effort for a legitimate reason, a medical reason?
Well, there is a medical marijuana movement in New Jersey. It's not very big and it's not very well funded. There's a few individuals out there. There is the New Jersey Medical Marijuana Coalition, and they have offered help. There's a guy named Ken Wilkowski who runs it. He's helped me. He even organized court support for me when I was in my trial. So during my trial, there were people outside the courthouse passing out flyers and saying, "Hey, this is a plant. Hey, this is his medicine. Don't convict." I'm sure jurors saw that as well.
So tell us about the status of your ailment.
Well, this is the second time I've had a tumor in this knee. It was growing into my knee joint and was endangering my knee. Like I would have to have a knee replacement. But this drug I've been taking for the last year and a half has pretty much retarded the growth of it. It's not advancing on my knee anymore. I still don't want the surgery right now because a lot of times when they start cutting things out, that's when it gets in your bloodstream and ends up somewhere else. I know where it is right here. My knee is benign. It's not malignant right now. So there's really no need to move it. So what I can say is, I pray that this tumor that's in my knee doesn't go malignant. I actually have two in my shoulders also, and they've been benign as well. The one in my knee is the one that causes me the problems.
Tell us about what you're doing this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm getting ready to become a prisoner again. This is my 20 days. Like I said, I filed a petition for clemency with the governor, asking the governor to intercede on in this case, and let me leave this imprisonment be for now. I'm not even asking him to throw out the case. I just want the appellate court to make their ruling.
I have somebody calling in. You want to hold right there and see if we can take some calls?
Sure.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. It didn't. My VIP function didn't work. BAI, you're on the air. Speak quick. I got to get the guest.
Quick.
I lost my guest. We got to get him back on the air before he surrenders himself to the authorities.
Okay.
Speak quick.
Okay, you want me to tell you what I'm going to say?
Yes, quickly.
Yes,
Please.
Okay. This young man is amazing. Anyway, nothing about the legalities. there's an amazing man who's on BAI every day who works the project for free for reversing the condition. Okay? His name is Gary Null and .com.
I was going to mention that.
His help is free and wonderful, and it's successful.
All right. Thank you for that, and we'll mention that. And we're going to get our guest back, okay?
That young man, he gets hurrah, hurrah, hurrah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Kudos.
New Jersey Weedman, we got you back?
Yep.
Oh, sorry I lost you.
No problem.
We got you back.
This is a very, very interesting story, and
Because it has deeper ramifications.
Yes, it does.
It has deeper issues that are going to be coming up depending on
Well, there are
the
several,
outcome of this.
not
case.
just on the issue of the marijuana, but the profile, the
Absolutely.
probable cause.
Equal protection.
Well, actually, you haven't got to
process.
the most egregious part of this.
Break
Now,
it down to
let me
us.
explain. Over the years, I've gotten pretty famous in New Jersey for refusing to take plea bargains and taking my court cases all the way to trial. This isn't the first time I went to trial, and the second or third time. I've taken a few things to trial, and not just for criminal actions. I've sued the state of New Jersey for I refused to give up my DNA 1 year. It took a couple years, but ultimately I won that case. We touched on my name change case. I argued, how could the government tell me what I can and cannot change my name to? I ended up losing. But either way, what I'm saying is I constantly fight and resist the system, and I think in a good way. Well, throughout this case, throughout the 3 years of this case, I refused to take a plea bargain. I constantly said plea bargains were bribery by the government, and I refused to be bribed out of my right to a fair trial. Well,
I think most men, and I wouldn't say men, just speaking from experience, but most people, that they don't realize that until they've actually gone through it and realize that when they've taken that plea bargain, what it really means.
Yeah, it's all
I had that
downhill.
experience back in 2000, so I said I would never ever do it again, and I've pretty much stuck to my word. Now, let me tell you what happened with this. When I beat the state of New Jersey on the possession charge, on the possession with intent to distribute, my jury came back and said not guilty 12-0. But the first jury, I had two juries. The first jury did find me guilty of a fourth degree marijuana possession charge. That's the lowest marijuana charge you can give a person. It's a ticket. It's a fourth degree crime. You don't go to jail for it. Nobody goes to jail in New Jersey on a fourth degree marijuana.
Unless you're a target. Unless you're a target and an example.
A political target.
Yeah, and we have to stop the system.
And I think this is what it seems to be.
No problem. The judge sentenced me on January 17th to probation, 2 years probation. At the time, in court, I argued to the judge that he should set this sentence aside or stay the sentence pending appeal. He said no. I said that I was going to file a formal motion, which I had 30 days to do. Well, the very next day, the judge violated me on my probation. It wasn't even 24 hours later he violated me because I didn't give up my DNA and didn't.
Wow. So you didn't conform to the...
I believe I had 30 days, and I think it could be litigated out, but that's not what they did. Instead, what they did was they had I called it an illegal ex parte hearing where the judge, the prosecutor, and the probation people all met. No one called me. I've been going back and forth to court for 3 years. I was available. I would have went to court. No one called me, and they had this hearing where they found me in contempt of probation or something, and they issued a fugitive warrant for me. Now, the judge knew I was going to California to get my cancer treatment, and I was going to be right back. Well, he issued a fugitive warrant for me, and they called the Philadelphia airport. And when I arrived at the airport to fly to my cancer treatment, I was arrested. I was held in jail for 45 days. The state of New Jersey extradited me from Pennsylvania. I had to have an extradition hearing. I missed 2 cancer treatments, and then on March 12th, when I was marched into the courtroom before the judge, I was told beforehand that I could plead guilty and the judge would let me out so I can get my cancer treatments, or I could say not guilty, he would find me guilty, and he would sentence me to 9 months. And then at that point, he wasn't going to let me out or nothing, and tough luck. Under those circumstances, I pled guilty. After, like I said, I haven't pled guilty in years. I've been fighting plea bargains. I've been downgrading plea bargains. And then the way I look at it is practically a human rights violation. It was a sly, slimy way that they did it. It violated me with less than 24 hours.
Well, the system has become an oligarchy, and we are here to support you. And we really appreciate you.
It was vindictiveness.
Yeah, we appreciate you calling in.
Went after me with a phony charge, held me, I call it a deprivation of my health care, to force me to plead guilty. And then, of course, I plead guilty, and then I get this ridiculous sentence. It's 270 days, where I got to do 20 days at a time.
Exactly.
10 days release. In order to go to California and get my treatment, which is what I was doing when they arrested me.
Exactly, which is ridiculous. Only now it seems to be costing you a whole lot more money.
And it's just punishment.
So
even me asking the governor for clemency, I really don't think the governor's going to ask me. They're going to grant it. I ask because I have a right to ask. But
if he goes to Washington,
what we love about it is the fact that what you just said is that you ask because you have a right to ask.
But
and that's the most important thing.
If Christie goes to Washington, he may pardon him before he goes.
Well, I think Christie is more focused on not pretending that he's not right.
He has a national look to him now. He wants to run for president, or whatever's going on. He's being looked at as a presidential candidate. The entire country is watching him. Out west, the states out west that have legalized marijuana, the people in those states really believe in the legalization of marijuana. We have Governor Christie, who does not like our marijuana law, has undermined our marijuana law, and is basically a negative.
Well, it sounds to me like even if he leaves and gets voted out,
unelectable.
If he leaves and goes into his new position.
In the western states, the marijuana voters, remember, they vote for all their laws out west.
Yeah.
They have,
which is something Christie tried to do.
And this guy, former prosecutor, who's anti-marijuana, I think his marijuana policies alone will prevent him
excuse me.
from
I want to ask a question.
Nationally, let alone the fact that he's a Republican.
How do you support yourself now that you have to go to jail for 20 days, and then you got 10 days, and then you got to go back 20 days? How are you able to support yourself financially right now?
I haven't been. This is part of my clemency request to the government.
This ties into the question I was going to ask you is how can the listeners who hear you offer you support and your contact information and your website?
Two things before, and you can answer very briefly. Hold on, Weedman.
Go to my website, NJWEEDMAN.com. On the left-hand side, there's a PayPal link. There's even a Wells Fargo link. If anyone wants to go to Wells Fargo, my account number's there. You can drop it right into my account. And last month when I got out, or earlier, 10 days ago, so I say when I got out, I had like $80 in my account, and I didn't think I was going to make it to California. But a couple of those newspaper articles, about the clemency hit the internet, and actually a couple out of North Carolina actually paid for my round-trip ticket this time.
Nice.
Which worked, because that was part of my clemency report. Like these jailings prevent me from raising money, getting any money, and I've been fighting this case now for the last 3 years, and almost 4 years. And to be honest with you, it's taken its toll. At one point I had a whole dispensary, and I was doing very well in California. And like I said, this nightmare started on a visit. I came home on a visit, and this nightmare case in New Jersey has totally destroyed me, wiped me out. I'm still fighting. I believe I'm right. My appellate court argument that I was a legal marijuana patient that happened to be traveling in New Jersey, and New Jersey refuses to recognize my medical card. I think on appeal before the appellate court, I think I'm going to win. I think I'm going to change law in New Jersey just on that fact alone. And there's a few other details that we didn't have time to get into here.
Well, what can we do? What can
win? I think the judge even knows I'm going to win, but they're getting their blood out of me now.
Well, that seems to be the case. What can the public do, in a sense, to help the these laws be
at
changed?
this point right now, like I said, I've asked the governor to grant me clemency to end this 20 days in jail, 10 days out of jail a month thing, and you know, I've been asking people to call. The governor's number is 609-292-6000.
Do it again.
Repeat that number, please.
609-292-6000.
One time while we be quiet so everybody can hear it.
609-292-6000.
And that's Governor Christie.
Office. And, you know, there's an online petition going around to get people all around the country to call Governor Christie and ask him to rule on my clemency. And like I said, you can go to my website, NJWEEDMAN.com, and my clemency request is there. You click on the clemency request, it does give the phone numbers to the governor. Actually, there's a phone number to the governor's cell phone too. Someone was kind enough to give me the governor's cell phone.
When you get out of jail, please stay in contact with us and let us know.
Well, even while you're in.
You know, you let us know
if you can.
Now, do you get? Do you have any access to phones or anything?
I get mail, so I tell you what, I'll give you my mail address if anyone wants to.
Yeah, give it out.
But it's on my website. If you go to my website,
well, give it out because a lot of people aren't on the internet that are listening to radio.
Yeah, give it out.
Okay. All right. My name is Edward Forchion. I'll spell it Forchion. And in Burlington County, I'm number 73966. So it's Edward Forchion, the number sign 73966, P.O. Box 6000, Mount Holly, New Jersey 08060. And when you put that P.O. Box 6000, that directs all mail to the jail.
Do that one more time for those who didn't have their pen ready.
All right. Edward Forchion, Forchion, number 73966. That's the Burlington County Jail. You can just put BCJ, P.O. Box 6000. That's Mount Holly, New Jersey, MT HOLLY, Mount Holly, New Jersey 08060 is the zip code. And like I said, we put that P.O. Box 6000 in Mount Holly. That's the jail.
We're praying for you, man. You know, while you're in there incarcerated, and we wish you, you know, success with your cases. And we want the audience to chime in too. So chime in and give us a call and let us know. You know.
Yeah, and I tell your audience, you know, just go to my website, NJWEEDMAN.com.
Yes.
I have a Facebook page too, but I got 5,000 people, and I'm not there to accept new friends. So,
okay.
You know,
real
you
quick,
can go look if you can, but
real
go
quick.
to my website, NJWEEDMAN.com. There's links there as far as support. You know, there's a PayPal, there's a Wells Fargo link there, but there's a lot of information. I've been putting a lot of information out there for a long time. You know, there's a lot of aspects that legal aspects how we can fight this war on drugs, war on marijuana. And I do look at the war on drugs, war on marijuana as a civil rights fight.
It's a war on people,
you know,
really.
To me, the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 replaced the Jim Crow that our civil rights leaders in the 60s killed.
When you get out again,
or seriously wounded, I think he's made a comeback.
When you're home again, call in and we'll give you a whole show where you can break all this down and get into what you're talking about now. Now you're really opening things up.
Well, you know, I can go in on the whole racist.
Well, really, let me say this real quick because a caller did call, and this occurred to me earlier that we have. Are you familiar with Gary Null?
No, I'm not. I can't believe there is no marijuana supporters in New York City.
No, believe me.
There's tons.
They're there.
There's a few closer than you realize.
Don't incriminate yourself.
Hey, you know, this is WBAI. You know, it's what we do here.
Well,
you know,
cash, you know?
Keep it real. I'm not living vicariously through anybody else. I'm very, very close to the subject.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and go then. I'm going to go ahead and head off to jail. Like I said 2 days ago.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
We got a caller.
We got a caller.
We got a caller.
Okay.
ever get that call?
Well, we're going to try it again.
Try it.
We're going to try it again.
Hey.
WBAI, are you there?
Yes, I am. We have to get your phone line fixed.
Yeah, please. Yeah, because I don't know when I'm going to get that train whistle thing going on. And Mr. Faizan, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Forchion.
Why am I thinking Faizan? I'm
Forchion.
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 I saw that I-O-N in there. Mr.
Morning.
Forchion.
Thanks for calling.
Any questions for the guest?
Actually, well, not really questions. I just definitely wanted to wish him the best of luck on that case. I didn't know he was actually incarcerated at the time until I heard kind of the end of the latter part of the conversation. But I just wanted to wish him the best on that, and want to see when we can get him back online and have a full show on him, giving more information, kind of about of course, any 420 propositions and just more information.
Well,
Okay.
I tell you, 20 days from now, I actually get out December the 3rd. So anytime after December the 3rd, but it has to be before December the 13th.
Of course.
Okay.
Is that your timeline when you have? Okay. You have a timeline between the 3rd and the 13th of December.
Yeah, that's the 10 days. And actually, I am scheduled to get my next treatment in California on December the 10th. So around the 8th or the 9th, I'm going to fly out there and come back on the 11th or 12th. And
we're at in California.
Yep.
Let's see.
Say that again?
We're at in California.
Santa Monica. That's actually where the doctor's at. So I fly into LA, take the bus to Santa Monica.
Are you
done.
going to be on the East Coast on the 19th into the 20th?
Actually, I live in Los Angeles.
No, I'm talking about
The guest.
Fortune.
Yeah, but I'll be in jail.
No, December 19th.
Yeah, I go back on December the 13th, so I'll be in jail.
Oh, wait a minute.
I'm missing all the holidays this year. I'm missing Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's.
Well, we'll contact you offline.
Yeah.
We can contact you and work out a date.
Yeah,
And we will dedicate a whole show to you, and we'll do it this time and produce the whole thing up around the whole issue and subject, because I know some other people who would love to get in on this too, on the legalization and just the whole parameters of your legal situation and what they're doing to you, the crucifixion, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's what I want you to do. Just go to my website. I pretty much laid it out there. Like I said, I'm in jail, but you can study my website. You'll know exactly what to ask me when I get out. Especially this clemency request.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Read the clemency request. I pretty much explain everything there.
The clemency request. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Well, if you are in, I guess you're between the 3rd and the 13th in Los Angeles, you just, I guess I could try to connect with you or something if you have a Facebook or something.
I have a Facebook, and if you go to my website, NJWEEDMAN.com, I have email. I even have my phone number there. You can call me right on my hip.
Excellent.
And actually I get the random calls from people too all the time. They'll say, hey, what's the website? And they can't believe I'm answering the phone.
I have a question that has nothing to do with weed, but it says, anyone ever told you that you sound like Spike Lee?
No.
Who sounds like Spike Lee?
He sounds like
Never
Spike
heard
Lee.
that before.
You do.
yeah, his voice does sound.
Right?
He doesn't. His delivery isn't the same, but
His voice sounds like
his
Spike
voice
Lee.
sounds like Spike's. Yeah, he doesn't articulate the same way though.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us.
I think I got
I
it.
get that I sound like Mailon Rivera.
Oh, the fix
Well,
is in.
that's
He
a
has
hell
that
of a
voice.
compliment.
He has
That's a
it.
hell of a compliment.
Yeah,
Well,
he has
listen,
a great voice.
those guys out there, all of our supporters, and especially the supporters of, 420 legalization, and please support New Jersey WEEDMAN when he comes out to Cali. He's a patient in California. He's a patient in California.
And an inmate in New Jersey.
But a prisoner in the state of New
There's
Jersey.
the
And that is something
tagline.
that we need to talk about, the irony of it, the hypocrisy of what we call laws. And again, is there anything that we can do to change not just the laws, but what can we do to help you personally, WEEDMAN? Just go ahead and one more time.
Well, I said it. Go to my website, NJWEEDMAN.com.
That's it? Okay.
I have a PayPal account on there. I have a Wells Fargo account. But I want you to read, too. And by the way, I totally didn't even bring it up. You know, I'm an author, too. You know,
I was going to ask you that.
I published a book a couple years ago called Public Enemy number 420. You know,
420.
420 thing. Public Enemy number 420. I mean, you can go to Amazon to get it. You know, at one point I used to sell them myself, and I would sign them myself, and I would send everyone who bought a book directly from me the book with a joint in it. And, you know, that was when I was in California. I had my own dispensary. At this point, it would get too expensive for me to send a joint with every book.
You've been very provocative, I see. Sending out joints to, you know.
I love it. I love it.
Governors and stuff.
Public Enemy.
So the book is Public Enemy 420, and it's available on Amazon.com.
And it's available in hardback, softback, and even an ebook.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Right online right now.
Thanks for joining us, and stay in contact, and we're going to get you on next time.
You're listening to UA360 Radio. This podcast was recorded during the production of In the Moment with Ahmad Ali and originally aired on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York City.